Welcome to yoga. So today we're going to do a restorative yoga practice. And the difference between restorative and what you often see on here is that whereas many of the other practices are sort of a balance of more yin and yang energies, more activated energies and more receptive energies, restorative is about being surrendered. And so rather than stretching muscles, what we're actually doing is we're going to be using props and we're going to hold poses a lot longer. So it's a much more meditative practice, which might be more challenging for you if your mind is something that's quite active. I know when I first started practicing yoga, any long holds just kind of made me want to run screaming from the room. So that can be just as challenging as like moving quickly. But the beauty of it too is it can allow us to drop in a lot deeper, and it can allow our bodies a much deeper level of rest, because what happens when we actually let the muscles start to relax while we're in shapes is that eventually we actually let this gentle stretching or lengthening that's happening, we allow that to actually trickle down into the connective tissue, the fascia in the body, which surrounds everything, even each cell. They're actually, I've heard it said. So the connective tissue is actually the bridge between our structural and our energetic space. So when the brain sends signals to the body, it's through electromagnetic pulses, and those pulses have to travel through some kind of medium, through some kind of conduit, right? And so the connective tissue, the fascia of the body is one of those ways that those travel. So what that means is that we can find a lot of deep restoration, a lot of deep relaxation, a lot of rejuvenation. It also means that this is a more subtle practice. So we're taking it rather from, yoga often works from the gross to the subtle, meaning from the things that we can like feel and see with our eyes to the things that we may not be able to see with our eyes. So our subtle body, which is the experience, our body's experience that doesn't happen as tangibly, perhaps. So there can be memories stored, there can be emotions stored, there can be traumas stored. So this is the time to be really mindful and really gentle, because again, it's not about pushing anything. It's not about going deeper than where we need to go. That's another piece that can be different between restorative yoga and yin yoga. So not that yin yoga is about pushing or about going deeper than you want to go, but if you're someone like me who has a lot of mobility in your joints and actually tends more towards hypermobility, then yin yoga, which doesn't usually use props and support, I find I overstretch when I do yin. So if that's something where you end up feeling, if your body feels more sore after a long held stretches, then you might really enjoy this, because we're going to use props. And so then the body can't go too far and we can surrender more deeply without having to worry about pushing past our own boundaries accidentally, because our joints have a lot of mobility in them. So that said, you're going to want to have props with you, and you can make them up at home. So you're going to want to have like 2 sort of blanket towels. They don't have to be huge. You want to be able, there's something that we want to be able to perhaps roll up periodically. Or fold. I have a big, nice bolster here. If you have a bolster, great. Even if it's smaller than this one, that's okay. You might also want to grab a pillow or 2. And this is a pretty large kind of dense thing. So that's why maybe a couple pillows might be good, because it just depends on your body, what kind of size support you might need. Sometimes the bigger the support, the more challenging, or the deeper the stretch. And sometimes, sometimes smaller support is actually better. Sometimes though, bigger support actually helps bring the floor closer to us. And so it lets us back off the stretch a little bit. So that's why you want to have options. And then you want to have 2 blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can use thick books. And again, you can stack a couple if you need to, because sometimes the thickness makes things more intense. And so you might actually want something thinner than this. And sometimes the thickness is what you need to help you get less intensity. So again, you just want to have options. If you're using books or something that's kind of harder, you might also want like a pillowcase or something to kind of wrap them in just to make them a little bit softer, just to cushion them a little bit more. So I think that should be good for us for today. We'll make do with that. So that said, once you can pause the recording, you can go get your props if you don't have them already. And then once you're ready, come back and we'll get started. This is also the time that I want to take to remind you that none of what I share here is intended to replace any sort of medical advice or even your own inner knowing, your own body's inner truth. So remember that I'm guiding, and honor your physical truth in anything. If what I'm saying does not feel right, then skip that one, back off. You can reach out to me or to another teacher that you trust for help modifying or finding more specific instruction. Also, if you can and feel called to contribute, that helps me keep content going. There are links to contribute that are below each video in the fully expanded video description. So you'll probably have to click the more button to see them. They're a little bit down underneath where I actually talk about the video. So thank you so much. Gather your props and then we'll meet back on our mats. So now that we're back on our mats, I'm going to go ahead and we'll start in child's pose actually. And so for this child's pose, you're actually going to take a supported child's pose. So grabbing your bolster or your pillows, you're going to bring that in front of you. You're going to take your knees wide if that feels okay. And you're going to start to walk yourself down to rest. You might feel okay resting your forehead down on your bolster or your pillows. It might feel better to rest one cheek. And if you're resting one cheek, we will switch. If you would like a little bit of support for your knees, you can either take a blanket underneath them or take your blanket or towel, roll it up into a thinner roll, and maybe tuck it there kind of behind your quads and calves so that as you sit your hips back, you're kind of resting on that. If you're a runner, that might actually feel really good because sometimes too, that's just a little bit of extra pressure on your calf muscles that might help them release. So once you're in the shape, feeling comfortable here, take a few nice deep breaths in and out. And with each exhale, see if you can let yourself really start to soften. Scanning your body, noticing where there might be any muscles resisting softening. And again, there's nothing to fix, there's nothing wrong. And just see if you can notice, because chances are those places that are resisting softening now are probably often activated. They're probably often alert or almost like coiled or tense. And it may be that your body doesn't even remember that there might be a different baseline, that there's a softer place where those muscles could go to. So again, it's not about fixing them, it's just about allowing them, holding long enough in sort of this invitation for softness that eventually they remember their own softer state. So it's a very compassionate thing. Very different from an agenda, from a fixing. It's like holding out a hand and waiting for someone or something to take it, rather than going over and adjusting them. As you settle into more stillness, as you continue to breathe a little more deeply, particularly perhaps focusing on the exhale and the release, just notice where your mind goes. If your mind is hopping around, or certain thoughts or tapes of some kind keep playing through the mind, notice those without diving into them. So it's almost like you are watching them play through, while still staying oriented in something that's happening right here and right now. So maybe it's the sounds around you, maybe it's your breath, maybe it's sensations in your body. If you have one cheek on your mat, go ahead, or on your bolster or your pillows, go ahead and switch the cheeks. And continue to breathe. Feeling the support of your pillow, your bolsters, the ground. Feeling softness continue to take over your body. Nice, deep, slow, steady breath. To me, an image that often helps is like if you're at the surface, if you're swimming at the surface of the ocean or a pond or a lake, the water can be choppy, right? There's waves, there's wind, there's noises. And yet, if you let yourself kind of sink below the surface, and then even if you go down a little bit further, there's still some buffeting, but it's less. Or maybe you even sink so deep down that there's just stillness, right? The sounds, the distractions. So it's the same here. Perhaps when you first get on your mat, you feel that choppiness of the surface, the noises. And then as you continue this practice, you might feel yourself sinking a little deeper into a place where there's more quiet, where there's still an ebb and a flow, but it's more muted or more subtle. And perhaps it feels louder. You might even notice the subtleties more because there aren't all the other distractions that usually keep you from noticing them. So taking one more nice full breath in. Exhale it out. Bring your hands back in a little bit closer and just start to press your way back up to a seat. Into your hands and knees. From here, go ahead, if you have that towel or blanket behind your knees, go ahead and remove it. I'm gonna leave the bolster where it is, and we're just gonna come sitting to one hip. Maybe you start with your right hip here along the bolster. I have my legs kind of, it's a little hard to see because I've got black, but I've just kind of got them staggered. So whatever is comfortable for you as far as your legs go. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to take our spine into a little bit of a twist. So bringing your hands, one on either side of your bolster or your pillows, and you're gonna start to walk your hands forward and start to lay your chest down. Now, you might find that one shoulder is kind of lower or higher than the other. Eventually, you're working towards having shoulders even, having your chest kind of rest evenly on your bolster or your pillows. And again, that may not be today. We're meeting our body. We're using the shape as the invitation, just like we do in the vinyasa practice. We use the shape as the invitation. And then we let our body show us what's between us and where we want to go. And then we meet ourselves there, wherever we are. So for less of a twist, you might rest if it's your right hip down, you might rest your right ear down and gaze the same direction as your knees. For more of a twist, you might turn and gaze away from your knees. And so once you're in the twist, again, just take a couple of nice deep breaths in and out. Really let yourself melt into the shape. And the thing with restorative shapes is they may not feel like much as you're beginning. But again, as you rest here, and as the choppiness of the waves of your thoughts die away and you drop into more of that subtlety, more of the quiet, you might start to notice little things that you wouldn't have noticed moving more quickly. And just like in more of our active practices, we're feeling a nice, deep, steady breath. And if we can't feel the breath, then we back off, coming a little bit out of the shape, taking a little bit more support. You need to. And then we let the inhale be about gently expanding into the shape. And we let the exhale be about just softening into the space that we are creating in our body, perhaps even in our minds. Stay present. Notice if your mind has wandered, just bring it back to the present. Notice where you are in relation to the churning or the waves. And still in the midst of that, or have you dropped a little bit deeper? Notice what, if anything, is shifting in your body. Perhaps there's more softness. Perhaps you're more aware of subtlety. Perhaps you're aware of sensations that weren't there when you first got into the shape. Take one more full breath in. Exhale it out. Using your hands to help push you up. You're just going to gently windmill your knees around to the other side, so that now your opposite hip is down. Legs still staggered in whatever way is comfortable for you. One hand on either side of your pillows or bolster. Again, start to walk your hands down, aiming for a chest that rests evenly on the support, for shoulders that are even. And again, that may or may not happen today. And then for less of a twist, you can rest your left ear down if it's your left hip. You can look your gaze in the direction of your knees. For more of a twist, turn your gaze the opposite direction of your knees. Take a few breaths in and out here. Settle into the shape and notice perhaps one side feels different than the other. Notice if there's any part of you resisting softening into the support, into the ground, into your pillows or bolster, into your breath. And that can lead to just some gentle, compassionate self inquiry. Where else in your life do you find it hard to receive support? Or perhaps for you, it's a different experience and you find it very easy to flop down and just melt in. So perhaps that activated energy of a more yang practice, of a more stronger flow, perhaps, or faster flow, more muscle activation, maybe that's actually the harder thing for you. In which case, perhaps then your body might be showing you a pattern of challenge around setting boundaries. Perhaps you find it easy to lean on others and find it harder to rely on yourself. Or maybe you're recognizing something else about yourself entirely, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong here. I have no agenda for your awareness or your practice or your journey. But it's these kind of things that we can start to notice within the four corners of our mats. We have an opportunity to recognize our patterns because how we show up here is no different from how we show up off our mat. If we have trouble stepping back from our thoughts, finding some distance there, if we have trouble feeling our emotions or not identifying with our emotions, we have trouble slowing down or we have trouble breathing, maybe we're in fight mode all the time or flight mode a lot of the time. Maybe we collapse. Make sure you're still breathing nice and deeply. And remember, as I said before, there's nothing to fix. So these awarenesses are not coming up for us to change them. Because change happens when we bring awareness to it. Just by observing the pattern, something is already shifting. So see if you can let yourself trust that. And just let yourself breathe and soften and observe compassionately. A nice full breath in. Full breath out. Using your hands, slowly start to press your way back up. Just fan or wind chill, wiper your knees, windmill your knees around back to the first step. And actually, we're going to go ahead and leave our bolster, our pillow as it is. And we're going to come to sit on both sits bones, our hips right up against the base of our bolster or pillows. And then we're going to start to lean ourselves back. Okay, so this is going to help start to open a little through our chest. You might wish, if you want to work a little bit more of a stretch through your inner thighs, you're going to bring your feet together, soles of the feet together, let your knees swing out to the side. Now, it might feel really good to take support under your knees so that, again, you can really allow your legs to relax. You don't have to use your muscles to hold you there. So that might mean sliding your blocks or your books underneath. If that's too high or too hard of a texture, you can also take your towels or blankets, you're going to roll it up and you're going to tuck one edge kind of right underneath your hip here and the other sort of under your ankle. So the length of the towel or blanket kind of supports that the entirety of your leg kind of from hip down to ankle. And so once you've got that on each side, your support you might want there. And you're going to go ahead and let your body lay back, let your arms rest down. Now, if the height of the bolster or your pillows is too much, you might want to take it down to either a smaller pillow. You could also use another rolled up blanket or towel the length of your spine. If as you lay back, that feels okay on your spine, but you have trouble letting your arms relax on the floor, then take your books or your blocks, or even maybe your blankets or towels, whatever you still have left as far as props, and just let your arms rest. Your forearms, your lower arms are going to rest on those. You want to make sure that your chest can soften, that your shoulders can soften, that your ribs, your hips, and your legs, everything can soften, including the muscles in your face and your jaw. Maybe it even feels good to let your eyeballs soften back in your sockets towards the middle of your skull, just letting them drop back. Especially if you spend a lot of time in front of a screen. You can experience a lot of eye strain. Sometimes that's because it's almost like we're leaning forward. It's almost like our eyes have moved forward trying to grasp the information. So we're letting go of the grasping. We're letting that sense of comfortable heaviness, that sense of melting, trickle down even into the very cells of our body. Many meditative practices speak of the witnessing presence. So that's the space around our thoughts, around our emotions, not because those things are invalid, but just because they are not the totality of who we are. And so often we live our lives caught up in those as if what we think is our entire world. Notice perhaps here how, well, yes, they're interconnected. Your heart beats and your breath still flows separately of your thoughts, separately of any emotions. It's the I who is aware of thoughts, of emotions. And if there's some part of you that exists outside of that sense of I, take the nice breaths. Let yourself soften. Perhaps that feels really good and easy, where you might find that your mind is still asking for distractions. And so if that's where you are, just notice that. Notice if you have any spontaneous breathing pattern changes, like a deep inhale and exhale. Sometimes that can be a sign of something shifting in your subtle body and your energy fields. You might be someone who sees colors in the back of your eyelids or images, or you might hear sounds. Just trust and allow whatever's coming up without attaching onto it, without giving it too much meaning. One more nice full breath in. Exhale it out. Slowly start to bring your knees together. You can help them a little with your hands if you need to. Maybe you start to gently roll a little to one side. And from there, start to press your way back up to a seat. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and set your props off to the side again. This time we're going to take a side body stretch. So what we're doing today is we're making sure we move the spine in all of its different sort of directions so that we're finding some more mobility there. So taking your bolster or your pillows, you're going to turn them now so that the long edge of them is parallel to the short edge of your mat, or is parallel to your hip. Because we're actually going to start to then sit to one hip again and drape side body over. Now you can let that bottom arm, the arm closest to the ground, just kind of rest underneath. Perhaps that provides a little support for your head. If you'd like a little bit more, top arm can come up and over. If that feels like too much, you can just rest that hand on your pillows or your bolster, or just kind of let it drape alongside your body. If you would like something a little deeper, if you are open through your side body, you might also take your blankets or your towels and kind of stack them on top of your bolster to deepen the stretch for the side body. If you are someone who's tight through your side body, you may need to adjust your props to find something that creates a little bit less of a curve. You might also want to bring your book or your block or some other sort of prop to let your head rest on. If it doesn't feel good, resting it on your arm. And then as you start to kind of come into the shape, just find where your hips and legs are staggered comfortably. And your hips rest comfortably down. And then take a couple nice deep breaths in and out. And let yourself start to melt here. And so again, you just want to check and make sure that because of the shape that you're in, you're not creating any tension in your body, particularly your neck, your shoulders, because the point is to come to where the tension already is and then be somewhere where that can start to soften with time and with breath. And so letting yourself rest here. Back to that witness and presence if you lost it. Letting your body speak to you in its time and in its way, telling you about where you carry tension or where you might store things from the past that haven't quite been resolved. And letting it tell you perhaps a story of how much it supports you. How, without any active control on your part, your breath flows and your heart beats. And perhaps your body is just here telling you, I've been waiting for you to listen. I've been so wanting this relationship with you. Take one more nice full breath in. Exhale it out. Take that top hand, bring it to your bolster or pillow. Use that to help just slowly rest you back up. And then again, we're just gonna fan our legs around to the other side, coming to your other hip. And take same shape, other side. So if one side of your body is tighter than the other, you may find that you need to shift your props around so that you either have more support to take you deeper or more support in the sense of backing off a little. So finding whatever that right space is for you. Checking in that your legs are soft, that your hips are soft. And then that as you move into the stretch, there's a softening into it. Take a nice deep breath in and out here. And then let the journey begin. It's a really quiet, compassionate, observational kind of journey. Just a few more breaths here. One more nice full breath in. Exhale it all the way out. And then let your top hand press into your bolster and your pillow. Let that help you slowly rise back up. So from here, we're going to go ahead and come to restorative shavasana. So you can go ahead and just swing yourself around. You're going to keep your bolster or your pillows beneath your knees. Okay. And then you're going to take one of your blankets or towels. You're going to roll it a little and let that come underneath your ankles because you want your feet nice and grounded. Take your other blanket or towel, and then you're going to just give that a little bit of a roll. And you're not going to roll it all the way up. You don't want it to be a huge roll. And you're just going to rest that up. That's actually going to be right where your neck is, so that when you lay down, you want the roll to kind of be right here where your skull meets your neck. And then the rest of the blanket could even be at the back of your skull for a little bit of support. So you want your knees here. You want support underneath your ankles so your feet and ankles are grounded. Your hips might need to scoot a little bit closer to your bolster as you lay down. And then as you lay down, start to bring that roll right there where your skull meets your neck. Let your arms rest down by your sides. And again, if you need either small pillows or some sort of small support with small towels underneath your wrists, you know, the blocks here are a little large because you want to be able to relax your arms. But if you need any kind of support there to bring the ground a little bit closer to your arms so that your shoulders and your chest can really relax, go ahead and take that. And then as you come down here, see if you can just feel the back of your body melt into all of its support. The ground, your mat, the bolster of pillows, your blankets or towels. If it feels okay to rest palms at least to the side or even slightly up, you can do that. If that doesn't feel okay, let them rest down. Take a few nice deep breaths in and out here. Noticing what, if anything, has shifted for you since the beginning of your practice. Perhaps checking in again, noticing where you are in relationship to that churning, that turbulence. And now find the space between your inhale and your exhale. That silence, that no breath. Perhaps notice how that space is almost like a container holding the doing, holding the things we think of as us. In order for something to exist, there has to be a nothing holding it. And some part of us often fears that nothing, spends a lot of time and energy trying to escape or avoid that nothing. But as you sense it now, is there anything so scary? And if not, then perhaps you let yourself melt into that. If you need to stay in this place of rest, welcome to stay as long as you need. If you're ready to start to come out of the space, just first become aware of your inhale. Focusing then a little bit more on the activation, the enlivening, the bringing in. And perhaps you start to bring small movements into your fingers, your toes, your wrists, your ankles. And taking a nice full body stretch. And then if it feels good, make your way to one side of your body in preparation for coming up to a seat. Maybe you pause there on one side of your body for a few breaths. We'll eventually make our way up. Once there, just bring your palms together at your heart center, thumbs resting. Taking a moment to feel gratitude. Gratitude is powerful because it is both an offering and an invitation and an opening, a receiving. So gratitude is reciprocity. When we offer thanks for something, it is a recognition of what we have received, which allows what we've received to settle deeper into our bones, into ourselves, into our nervous system. In gratitude, we recognize this ancient wisdom lineage that is yoga, the yogis who have come before, those who practice now, ourselves, our inner teacher, and all of our outer teachers, and all the yogis who will come after. Perhaps we bow from a place of humility and gratitude. And thank you. Thank you.